Okay, now we're going to look at how to make functions. So if you have a piece of code in your main that you're going to use a lot, you repeat a lot, it might be better to make a subroutine or a function to handle all that. So we're back to our prime code again after we've allocated our array here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make most of this into a prime function. Uh, and just call that, and it'll clean up my main and make it look all nice and spiffy. So functions have to return something, or you have to say how it's going to return. Is it going to return some integer? Is it going to return a double or a decimal point number? Or it can return a character, or it can return nothing, and that's a type. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to put in, our function is going to take in this prime array here that we've allocated here, and it's going to change it, and it's not going to actually return anything. So it's going to return void. So the best practice for functions is after the definitions, go ahead and say what functions we're going to use. So we're going to have a void here. But we're going to just call it prime, all capital letters. And it's going to take in a integer, and we'll just call it prime. You don't have to call it prime. Array, and then end here with the semicolon. And then you actually do the programming. So this is just telling you, hey, look out for this function here. We're gonna make this function. Now we actually have to make the function below the main. This is where you actually do the coding. Then you code it just like you code the main. And then it takes in our prime array. And then, oops, leave that extra space here. And it's going to return null. It doesn't return anything. So we return here. This is where you would have, if it was an integer, you could return the integer variable that you want to return. If it was a double or a character or whatever, this is where you would put that return statement in. But we're just going to have it in here for now. Let's go ahead and debug or build this. Hopefully everything works out. Yep. Okay, good. So I'm going to put essentially everything from here on. And it's like it's complaining because I haven't declared any variables, but we can just copy and paste all those declarations. All these declarations. Oh, go ahead. Okay, I can just go ahead and get rid of all this. Now in our main, so now our main's cleared up, and all these can go away too. And of course, we need to add an I in there because we have so all our main now does is just declare the prime, and it has this I here for this loop, and then that's it. Everything else is in our function. Let's build this. See if we have any errors. Oh, everything worked out. So then we just go to declare. We can just minimize this, and then we could just call the function. And then we have to give it its input. Oh, yep. And it's like any other function. You can do it with a semicolon. Now you don't need to put any of this integer or any of this here. It just passes in the variable name, and it should spit out our answer. So let's go ahead and start debugging. Well, let's close from last video. There, the millionth prime, it spits right out. Okay, and that's how you make functions. So why would you use functions? Like I say, again, if you have a piece of code, like if you're going to calculate, say, the length of your array, there's functions that can do that, or anything that any type of code that is going to use a lot. you can make a function of it, and then you can just call it whenever you want, so you don't have to have the same 100 lines of code repeated. But the main points here is you declare it up here, the function name and what variables it's going to take, and then you code it down here just like you code the main. You declare your variables and just go on from here and do all the logic. Other functions, so like I said, you could do a function, well, we don't even have to, you could declare functions here, like let's declare another function that's return an integer, and let's say x, well, it doesn't matter, we'll call it function s. And it takes in a double x array and an int named I, and char, which is a character, a variable called y. Now we haven't actually built this. I mean, we haven't actually coded this function. It's a nonsense function. Let's go ahead and build this. But it's still built. It'd say, hey, you have this function here you're not using, function definition not found, but we haven't used it yet. So you can make as many definitions here, like, oh, and then program them later. So you can start your code and say, okay, I'm going to need this function, and this function. Remind yourself by just putting those declarations here, and then as you're programming them, you can as you're programming your main, you can go down here and make those functions. So that's it for functions. Very useful. We're going to need them a lot. So if you have any questions, let me know. See you next time.